Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Matt Citak. We're here for the next hour, folks, previewing Breakfast with Big Blue coming up on Sunday, 9:30 kickoff, New York time. They are in Munich, Germany. They left last night. They have arrived. Brian Daboll's already had a media briefing. They're out there on the practice field, I think, as we speak, Matt, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think practice just wrapped up.
Is it just ending now?
A little while ago, yeah.
You know, with the hour time difference and stuff, I can't keep track of this stuff. I do know the kickoff, though, is 9:30 in the morning on Sunday, so you got to get up bright and early for that. I will tell you this. The Giants, when they left yesterday, you know, there seemed to be a lot of optimism, and according to Coach Brian Daboll, there's even more optimism that Grant Gano and Jamie Gillen, the kicker and the punter, will be able to play after they've dealt with their respective hamstring injuries. Chris Hubbard, the left tackle who's played the last couple of games, mysteriously came down with some kind of illness yesterday. I suspect it was something he ate or whatever, because he was around the locker room after the game. He seemed to be doing okay, but I guess maybe his stomach wasn't right. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much on that other than he was ill. Sounds good, though, today that he's going to be able to go. So those are three guys who, you know, we didn't necessarily know much about 36 hours ago, but they're trending in the right direction. We also know that Darius Slayton did not make the trip last night. The wide receiver's been in the concussion protocol since the Washington Commanders game when he was dinged in that game. Did not go outside to watch practice this week, Matt, which tells you he's in the early stages of the protocol. And so he did not make the trip on the airplane, which is smart. Guy has a concussion. You don't want him doing that. However, there is a flip side to this injury report, which is a little bit disturbing and disappointing at the same time, because it is to a Giants defensive starter.
Yes, so while Coach Daboll did express optimism, now he didn't say for sure that Jamie Gillen and Graham Gano and Chris Hubbard, he didn't say for sure that they will play, but he said that they are, you know, trending in the right direction. He's optimistic about it, and typically on Friday when Coach calls a guy like that, it means the guy should be good to go, but you know, setbacks always could happen, so we'll see. But the one, I guess, negative injury update is Jason Pinnock. His status for Sunday is now in question. He popped up on the injury report yesterday with an abdomen injury. Was full practice, was not even on the injury report Wednesday. Then yesterday, Thursday, he popped up with this ab injury. He flew to Munich with the rest of the team, but Coach Daboll did say from Munich today that they're not sure if he's going to be able to play or not. You know, there is some level of concern. They're going to have to see how the next little under 48 hours go. It could go right up to game time. We don't know. But that is one guy who might not be able to suit up. And if that is the case, I imagine we will see a whole lot more of Dane Belton, who, you know, since being drafted by the Giants, when given an opportunity, has stepped up. And if Pinnock is unable to go, I would assume that Belton would slot right into the starting lineup next to Tyler Nubin and be playing a significant amount of snaps on Sunday.
And that also means you got to dig deeper into the depth chart for a backup should you require some snaps. And Anthony Johnson, who did some things over the summer, would wind up being the next guy in line should the Giants need another safety.
Yes, he would. And also just on the other sideline for the Carolina Panthers, their injury report already came out, and they ruled two players out for Sunday's game. One is veteran wide receiver Adam Thielen, which not much of a surprise considering he has not practiced all week. You know, he returned to practice last week. Maybe he suffered a setback or something. I don't know, but
they were hoping.
Yeah,
they were hoping.
He got in a couple of limited practices last week, but did not step on the practice field this week. He's been ruled out. And then the other one, which it was trending this way, is their starting left tackle, Ikem Ekwonu, who also did not practice all week with an ankle injury. He missed last week's game. He has also been ruled out, which means Brady Christensen is his name? He will be slotting in. He filled in last week and he wasn't awful, but he wasn't great. I mean, he looked like a backup tackle out there. And so Brian Burns and Azeez Ojulari will get plenty of run against him, along with Their starting right tackle, Taylor Moden, who did not practice yesterday, but that was just rest. He's not on the final injury report. And then the only other player for the Panthers listed as doubtful is safety Jamie Robinson. And in addition to that, they have about 6 players listed as questionable. All of them, though, were full participants in practice today, which you would think puts them in the right direction to play on Sunday. One of them being rookie second-round pick running back Jonathan Brooks, who Dave Canales said today that he's healthy. He's already been activated to the roster, but Canales would not commit to Brooks actually playing on Sunday. He said that it's a tough decision that they're going to have to contemplate over the next 48 hours. To me, the guy's been practicing in full since last week and practicing full all of this week. I know he's coming off a torn ACL, but that was almost a full year ago now. I don't know what they're holding back on, but nonetheless, there is a chance Jonathan Brooks plays, but that might be another. He will be active, but we'll see if he actually gets onto the field or not.
If Chuba Hubbard gets on a roll, and he's got well over 600 yards this year, he is legit. They just gave him a 4-year contract extension the other day.
For some serious money.
If he gets on a roll against the Giants on Sunday, and we know the Giants have had trouble stopping running backs this season, they may just keep feeding the ball to Hubbard. And if he carries the ball 25, 26, 27 times, he may need an occasional breather, and that may force them to put Brooks in the game for a couple of snaps. But I don't think there's any doubt that Brooks is foaming at the mouth. Originally, when he ripped his ACL last November, they expected him back by week 3 or 4, and we are well past that time now. He is a dynamite back. Ran for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns with Texas last year. He is a guy who averaged over 6 yards a carry. In fact, not just this past year in Texas, but his previous 2 years when he was a backup, he also averaged over 6 yards a carry. This guy's not a flash in the pan. The reason he was drafted in the second round, despite a torn ACL, is because he has some legitimate upside. Big time.
Yeah.
He's a real back, and he can catch, too.
He was the first running back taken in this past draft, and that was with teams knowing that he would likely miss at least some of this year, and the Panthers still traded up in the second round to take him as the first running back. So, yeah, he is filled with talent. Whether it's this week, a couple weeks from now, or whenever, I feel very confident in saying that he will take advantage of his opportunities whenever they come and look good. I will say, though, that the forgotten man in the Panthers backfield, they do still have Miles Sanders as well, who hasn't looked the best last season and at times this season, but he is still a veteran running back that if for whatever reason the Panthers want to hold Jonathan Brooks out and give him another 2 weeks full to rest, Miles Sanders could be the guy that gets in and gives Chuba Hubbard.
A couple years ago, that Penn State back ran for, I think, 1,200 yards with the Philadelphia Eagles. And in a game a couple years ago, I think he ran for $140 against the Giants. Do you remember that game?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely destroyed the Giants' defense. To this day, I'm still not sure why they were so eager to let Sanders go, although here it is 2 years later now, and they got Saquon Barkley. They got the other Penn State back.
Even last year when they replaced Miles Sanders with DeAndre Swift had a great year.
And I still didn't understand it because Sanders was really good for them.
I think they just, my opinion, they probably wanted a running back that was a little bit better as a pass catcher, even though with Jalen Hurts, there's not too many dump-offs, but we've seen Saquon run legit routes, wheel routes.
Barkley's an MVP candidate this year.
Yeah, he's also, first of all, the upper echelon of all running backs, but especially pass-catching running backs, he is among the best in the league. But yeah, my personal opinion, I think Miles Sanders is a great runner, but never really added that much in the NFL as a pass catcher. So that would be my guess as to why they decided to let him go.
In any event, his career has kind of fallen off a cliff since that time. As you said, he hasn't done a whole lot with Carolina.
Nope.
So that's what we're looking at, folks. Again, Giants-Panthers, 9:30 a.m. Sunday, in case you're, in your routine and you don't think about that all the time, that there's going to be an early game you got to worry about getting up for. 9:30. Pregame will be here on WFAN and the Giants mobile app at 7:30 in the morning. 2-hour pregame, 2-hour post. The MSG postgame still 1 hour for duration after the game is over. All our usual programming is still intact, okay, even though this is an oddball start time, okay? One other item to mention in terms of the Giants, it's really cool to see some of the stuff that's been happening with the activations and all the fan stuff. Marcus Kuhn, who I have so much enjoyed being around this year because he's become the Giants ambassador for the international game. And he's just a really good guy to be around. He's over there in Germany right now. In fact, he's on Good Morning Football as we speak. I think this is actually taped earlier this morning.
Yeah.
So he's not live. But it's been a pleasure to have him around because he is such a good guy and he's such a good spokesperson for the game. And the stuff that he's been telling me about how these fans absolutely dig it. And I'm not surprised because I go back to the days of NFL Europe and the World League. And in those days, they used to have a team in Frankfurt and I want to say Berlin were the two teams that were in NFL Europe and the World League. And what they basically told us, the reason that was so successful for those couple of teams was because there were so many American military over there in Germany. They got a couple of big bases apparently, and there were a lot of troops there. So these guys were just thirsting for American football. And that's why those teams actually had done well with their attendance figures, and they were established, international franchises in those old leagues. So it didn't really surprise me that at some point, after those leagues folded, that when the NFL decided to do these games, of course, London was the big flagship for these international games, that at some point they would start going to Germany. You just knew that was going to happen. And so Marcus tells me that people they love American football there. And the thing about it is, too, because he was a Giant, okay, and there's a connection there. And, of course, Jakob Johnson is also a German native. And he is, in the Giants building and part of this organization right now as well. You're going to see, I think, a lot of hometown flavor for the Giants in this game, even though it's a Panthers home game.
Yeah, I think, if it's between more Giants fans or more Panthers fans, I suspect you would see on the TV broadcast, you'll see more Giants jerseys out there. But I think as we've come to see with all of these international games, it doesn't matter who's actually playing on the field, you're going to see jerseys from probably all 32 teams in the stands.
That is true.
And a lot of them, of all different random players, random teams, current players, former players. As you said, these fans in Germany are just starving for American football. And unlike last year where there were 2 games played in Frankfurt, this is the only German game this year. It's the only ones happening in Munich. That's where the first German regular season game 2 years ago also took place. This is only the 4th regular season game to take place in Germany, all of which have occurred in the last 3 seasons, this season and the previous 2 seasons. So, yeah, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. Marcus actually went on the podcast with John earlier this week.
Yeah, it's the Huddle.
The Giants Huddle podcast, yes, to discuss, this game on Sunday, what the atmosphere is going to be like, how and why German fans care so much about American football. If you guys have some time before the game, I highly recommend giving it a watch. It's not too long. Yeah, Marcus is now the Giants German brand ambassador and content strategist. He's been around the building, once or twice a week, it seems like, for all season, really, doing a lot of work getting prepared for this trip. Of course, in the offseason, the Giants announced that Germany would be the international market that the Giants now have, their personal marketing international rights to. So,
they're showing Marcus's touchdown on Good Morning Football. I'm sorry to interrupt, folks, but I remember this play. Totally freaking out when Marcus picked up a fumble against Tennessee and rumbled something like 35 yards into the end zone for a score. He told me, obviously, he kept that ball, and it's very precious for him. He was the first native German to score a touchdown in the NFL.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
U.S. No worries. I'll finish up just by saying the Giants announced in the offseason Germany would be the international market that the Giants have marketing rights in. So obviously Giants are playing in Munich on Sunday. It is an away game. It would not shock me in the next handful of seasons if the Giants have a home game somewhere in Germany coming up. This will not be the last time, I think, that we see the Giants in Germany. It will be for now, but sometime down the road, I have a feeling we will see another Germany game.
All right, I think that's it to get you ready for the game. Oh, yeah, by the way, the other day, in case you missed it, Bryce Young was named the starter. He's been starting the last 2 weeks. After a while, Eddie Dalton had gotten in there for about a month. And then Young came back in. And then earlier this week, Coach said, well, we're not sure who we're going to put in there. Part of it was competitive reasons. Well, then they finally announced, I think 2 days ago, that Bryce Young would be the starter against the Giants. So he has never won 2 consecutive starts since he came into the NFL last season. It will be interesting to see what they do in terms of their offensive scheme this week. Again, I expect a lot of Hubbard, more and more of Hubbard, as much as they can possibly feed that ball to that poor guy. He's going to be tired after this game.
Yeah, he definitely is. So Andy Dalton was actually playing, pretty good football.
Played okay, but he's not the future of the franchise.
No, for sure. And obviously he got into a minor car accident. He sprained his thumb, and that is what led to Bryce Young starting the last 2 weeks. And, of course, the Panthers won a game last week, which they were only 2-7. The first win came back in week 3, the first game Andy Dalton started. So, of course, with Bryce Young leading the team to a victory last week, although Dave Canales started the week by saying, we're going to weigh our options and see how you can't bench the second-year quarterback who you at least have some hope that he could still be the future of your franchise. There's no way you put him back to the bench after he just plays what probably was one of his best games in the NFL and leads you to a victory.
Yeah, they went on a 60-yard scoring drive to win it. Hubbard ran it in from the 16 with about 2 minutes to go. And then the Saints failed to move the ball, and they had to turn it over on downs on 4th down at the very end of the game. So Carolina's defense held on and won it. I would add the 60-plus yard touchdown drive that won the game also involved a pass interference call, a big pass interference call. And that's how Carolina escaped 23-22, I believe was the score, against New Orleans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say Chuba Hubbard, as you mentioned, only had 15 carries last week, which normally speaking, that's not a small amount, but considering, again, that Bryce Young is the quarterback here this week for Sunday, obviously it depends on game script, but I would suspect that 15 number would be a bit higher this week. We shall see, though.
Yeah. 201-939-4513 here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Let's go to the phones. DJ in Virginia is first on the program. Hello.
Hey, Paulie. Hey, Citak. How you guys doing?
Good.
All right. How are you?
All right. So I had 2 things I wanted to talk about. So one, I wanted to get into roster building and the struggle between fielding a young team versus a veteran team.
Mm-hmm.
And the other I wanted to talk about is the struggles in the secondary and the offensive red zone woes.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at a crossroad because I kind of feel like, I like Joe Shane, but I kind of feel like we're not building the team or the roster the right way. And just hear me out. I watch all the BBKL shows. I watch all the New York Giants content. And, I can't get enough of it. I kind of do a lot of information overload.
Well, thank you.
And one of the things I notice, I hear a lot is you guys mentioned that the Giants have one of the youngest rosters in the league. And I'm trying to see if that is really a good thing. I'm not really sure if that's a good thing. And let me explain. So one of the things is when you go back, and one of my thought processes, when you go back to some of the things that I thought about last year and the O-line, Joe Shane fielded a lot of young guys on the O-line. And then you fast forward to this year, it seems like he kind of learned from that, whereas he brought in more veteran guys. He brought in Illuminor, he brought in Van Roten, he brought in Runyon. And, when I think about it, most times in an ideal situation, you want your young guys to learn from your veteran guys, and then you want to kind of transition to your younger guys over time.
Mm-hmm.
And something, I've kind of been like hearing lately, like in the social media world, they're talking like this team is like in like a rebuild mode, like this is a rebuild. But, it doesn't seem like we're moving like a team that's rebuilding. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
we're not.
Here's what I will tell you. Van Roten, and I don't mean to speak for Joe Shane, because I'm just not going to. It's not fair to him. But I think it's safe to say that when Greg Van Roten came here as an established veteran of over a decade of NFL experience and was a backup for a lot of those years, he was brought in here late during training camp, to me, to be a stopgap guy. He's a placeholder kind of guy. I don't think Greg Van Roten is the type of guy that you're, quote, building around. He's a stopgap. He's a guy who was brought in here to try to make sure that Daniel Jones has the best chance to stay healthy and on his feet this year, not necessarily as part of a build. Illuminor, short-term contract, but I think there's potential for him to stick around beyond this season. Runyon, I think there's a chance he can stick around beyond this season. So Schmitz obviously is only in his second NFL year, and Thomas is just entering his prime. So I do think there is a sense of building with this offensive line outside of Van Roten, who is simply a placeholder. So I appreciate your thought, but when you're talking about the O-line, I don't know that I agree with you. I don't think they're in rebuild, and I don't think they're all placeholders either. I think they're trying to do it the right way.
I also wouldn't be totally shocked if Van Roten does come back next year. I mean, I don't think it's going to be obviously like a long-term deal considering he's 34 years old, but he's been playing, okay football, solid football. I wouldn't be shocked if they bring him back on another one-year deal.
If he does, he needs to come back as a backup, because if he's coming back as a starter next year as this team tries to improve and build, that's probably not the right direction you're going in.
I think it depends how they obviously decide to allocate the offseason resources. I mean, there obviously will be some other big needs this offseason where if you can bring him back on, a minimum or close to a minimum one-year deal while maybe drafting a guard in the day 2 or early day 3.
Bring him back on a minimum, though. He's a backup.
Him develop.
You're not you're bringing him back as a starter. You're not getting away with a minimum.
Bring him back to a similar deal that he signed this year, which is not a minimum, but it's kind of close, and it has per game incentives.
Anyway, we can disagree on this one, but okay, Caller, go ahead.
I think when people are talking about rebuild, I think they're talking about like the team as a whole. So like for instance, like Carolina is like moving a lot of guys for draft picks. You know what I mean? Like. And when you think about like what Washington did a few years ago when they traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young, you know what I mean? So I mean, I don't want to really deviate from my point too much, but I'm trying to figure out what is the plan like as far as what we're doing. Like, it's weird because it seems like everyone else is like kind of like moving pieces, but the Giants are kind of like holding on to pieces, and we're kind of like in a hold pattern thing. It's weird, and I don't want to get too far, down that rabbit hole or anything. But it's like I just want to give like a little example of how some teams are like rebuilding. When you look at Washington and like Dan Quinn, for example, he doesn't have like a bunch of like younger pieces. You know what I mean? When you think about the guys like that he brought in, you know what I mean? He brought in more veteran guys like Fowler and Luvu and Wagner. They're older guys, but you know what I mean? I know you can consider them like stopgap guys, but they're older veteran guys, and they have some younger pieces.
Maybe this will help. Go back to 16. The Giants invested big money to bring in 3 defensive starters. You remember this.
Yep.
And what happened? They made the playoffs, right?
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
3 big-ticket defensive guys made the playoffs. It was a short-term surge, which did not last. That is not what Joe Shane is looking for. Now, Washington did not necessarily pay a ton on big-ticket items with some of the veterans you're talking about. But Bobby Wagner's not going to be around forever. I know he's been in the league for like 50-something years, okay? I'm joking, of course.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be around when the Commanders challenge, if they ever do challenge again for a conference championship. That's not going to happen.
I understand.
So,
I understand that.
So they may be reaping the benefits of some of these veterans in 2024, but there's a real chance that they take a step back in 2025. Because that's what happens a lot of times when you bring in these veterans to try to get that one-year boost.
Not only that, but if I don't know if you remember this, but going back to the offseason, I'm pretty sure the Commanders had the number one amount of cap space in the entire NFL, like over $100 million in cap space. It is a lot easier to hand out kind of big, bloated 1 year or 2 year deals to these veteran players when you have that much cap space. I mean, that's more than like double the cap space that Joe Schoen has ever had in any offseason since he became general manager of the Giants.
Right. But not only that, but like when you have veterans, they're almost like coaches on the field, right? So like
they can
for instance,
be.
when Tate Banks struggles, you know what I mean? Like, who is he going to turn to? Cordell Flott? Like, Cordell Flott's in his third year.
Adoree Jackson is part of the backfield, defensive backfield.
Yeah, but Adoree Jackson hasn't been on the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate the sentiment. I know that it's not the perfect mix. If it was the perfect mix, chances are the Giants' record would be better. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that everything they did in the offseason was perfectly designed to where every single hole was plugged. They knew coming off last year they had a number of things to do. And they decided, okay, let's deal with the offensive line. Boom, got that. Let's try to get an explosive playmaker. Boom, got one of those. Let's try to see what we could do about helping out the front seven and the pass rush. Boom, got one of those. Guy from Carolina, as a matter of fact. I mean, that's, there's only so much that you can do in 1 year. So you got to try to do 2 or 3 of the things 1 year, and then the next year you do 2 or 3 or more. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah, I understand. It just seems like you're having apprentices trying to learn from apprentices. You know what I mean? Like you kind of want your journeyman to be teaching your apprentices.
Well, that's one of the reasons that Devin Singletary's here, right? Singletary's a pro's pro and a veteran who was very well respected by everybody. And he's here. Just so happens that Tyrone Tracy has now elevated himself in the depth chart. And that's fine. But Singletary is still an influence on him. And Eric Gray. And Turbo Miller. I mean, if you got the luxury to do that at every position, God bless you. The Giants don't have that luxury.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, and the other 2 points I wanted to touch on was the secondary. And Shane Bowen, one of the things they were talking about as far as his defense was that you were going to play a heavy zone scheme, and they were going to be able to play fast, and the guys are going to be able to have their eye on the quarterback and read and react. But it doesn't seem like you're seeing any of that. You know what I mean? It just seems like a lot of guys are like either in like a trail position, guys are running wide open. Like, what am I missing? I don't understand. Like, the interceptions are down.
Bowen talked about some of that. You were out there, weren't you, for Shane's presser yesterday?
Yes.
He talked about some of what's going on with the defense. I'll let Matt take care of that.
No, you take that one.
All right. Here's the thing: the Giants are not a heavy blitz team.
Right.
We know that, right? Shane Bowen does not by nature want to be a heavy blitz team. So what has happened is you got a couple things. Number one, you have a team that has had too many missed tackles. I believe right now I've got them top 5 in the NFL in missed tackles. Yes, they are. 68 missed tackles. That's 4th in the NFL. That's a problem. Number 2, unfortunately, the Giants, as Shane Bowen said, they've got so many sacks. That also means that maybe some errant passes that might have been thrown with a pressure don't get thrown because you sacked the quarterback. Remember what I've said many times on this show before, that hits and pressures and sacks together, actually hits, hurries, and sacks together make pressures. Well, here's the problem, right? If you hurry a quarterback into making a bad throw, you can intercept it. If you get to him and sack him, you can't intercept it. So the only way you're going to create that turnover is by stripping the ball on a strip sack. Bowen was telling us yesterday, that's one of the things that he's weighed. He understands. They don't have as many picks. They have one all season. They'd love more picks. He's like, but part of the reason we're not getting more picks is because guys aren't haphazardly throwing the ball away. They're getting sacked. We're tackling them before they can get rid of the ball. That is part of it. The other part of it, quite frankly, if you're the Giants and you've got a secondary that is a little bit on the young side, they've still got to learn how to play all the aspects of defense. Tate Banks has had some brain lock plays. There's no question about that, where he was in good position and could have played the ball better and probably could have had 3 or 4 interceptions this year. But he did not, because those are growing pains that you have to live with a young corner. I get it.
Right.
You know, I know patience is not something anybody has with the way things have gone here for the past decade. But it's part of what you have to deal with an organization that started to turn the page 3 years ago.
And there's another part of it. I wanted to pull up the transcript before I spoke to it, because I wanted to get Shane Bowen's words exactly. But another part of it is you got to be able to first stop the run in order to put teams into these passing situations. I mean, let's not forget, the Giants rank last in the NFL in yards per rush allowed, 5.2 yards per attempt. That is 32nd in the NFL. If opponents are going to be able to get 5 yards a carry, that's just going to put them in fewer and fewer of these down, like long distance, third down, second and long, third and long passing situations, where if you only need, if it's like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, chances the throw that the quarterback is going to make from the opponent is going to be, a quick out route, a quick slant, something just to pick up the first down. It's a little tougher for the opponents when you're facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. The Giants haven't done a great job of forcing opponents into those 3rd and long situations.
And then when they do, they miss tackles and then wind up giving up the stupid conversion anyway.
That has happened at times this season.
And one more point.
Yeah, go ahead, because we got to let you go.
Yeah, no, last thing I want to bring up, and I'll take the answer off the air. I wanted to just touch on the red zone woes, and I feel like part of the struggle with scoring points is because of the way the team was built. And I remember you guys talking about how the O-line was more of a pass-protecting O-line.
Yes.
And how JMS is being kind of an undersized center. And, the guys being more, pass blockers and not kind of the guys that move guys off the line of scrimmage.
They're not bulldozers. So, it's not a power-grading offensive line. That's not what they are.
Yeah, so as we get closer to the goal line and the field starts to condense, that's when, you need to be able to run the ball and, move people off the line of scrimmage. So, as we, play, some of these guys, in the NFC East, the bigger D tackles, like the Jalen Carters and the Deron Paynes and the, Jonathan Allens, why do we have so many undersized passing O-linemen? Like, how are we going to be more efficient in the red zone if we have the more smaller pass-blocking O-linemen?
Caller, before we let you go real fast, how long you been rooting for the team?
A very long time.
All right, so you're
1985.
All right, so you remember Ahmad Bradshaw and you remember Tiki Barber?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you remember a lot of times when the Giants would get down there, they would spread out the field, but then they would still run the ball? Because when you spread out the field, and I'm not one who likes to spread it out. Let me just tell you, when I get inside the opponent's 5, I want to go hat on a hat, man on man, muscle on muscle, plow it in, and just bully that ball into the end zone. Now, I'm a slobber knocker kind of guy. That's
like
what I want.
Jacobs.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, but here's the thing. During Tiki's time here and during Ahmad's time here, there were times that the Giants would go spread offense inside the 5, and that was designed to get the bodies out from inside the box, from clogging up the short yardage. You spread everything out, and then you hand the ball to a Bradshaw or a Tiki, and because of their diminutive stature and their quicks, they would be able to hide behind the line. You didn't have to have a power line, and they could find the holes and slice in for the touchdown because the defense was spread thinner. So there are ways you can do that. You don't have to have a bunch of boxcars and elephants, as George Young liked to call them, on the offensive line to still run the game effectively in the red zone. You don't have to. There are alternate ways to do this. Thank you for the call.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, thanks, DJ. The only thing I'll add to this, because John and I spoke about this kind of at length on yesterday's show, is that so the Giants have had 25 trips inside the red zone. They've scored touchdowns on 10 of them. So that means 15 times they did not score a touchdown. Just off of the top of our heads, yesterday, John and I were able to bring up 5 different occasions where a sort of, I don't want to be too harsh, but a boneheaded penalty took a touchdown and took points directly off the board, or the Giants committed a turnover inside the red zone. And we counted 5 of those. And that's just off the top of our head, without actually going back, looking at the tape, looking through each of those times. So John and I spoke about this yesterday. The self-inflicted errors, especially when you get close to the red zone, have really killed the Giants. I mean, those 5 trips, if the Giants scored a touchdown on those 5 trips, instead of failing to, whether it was settling for a field goal or turning the ball over, their red zone percentage, instead of 40%, would be 60%. And they would be borderline top 10 in red zone offense instead of last in the NFL. So I know shoulda, coulda, woulda, ifs, I get it. But all I'm saying is if the Giants could just limit those mental mistakes, especially when they get close to the red zone, I feel like that alone would help provide a pretty big boost to the red zone offense.
201-939-4513 is our number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Again, we'll be here until the bottom of the hour. And let's see who was next on the show. It is DJ's
Marty.
name is still up there. Oh, I don't see Marty.
I got Marty.
My screen says DJ yet.
Marty Manahawk.
Okay,
Maybe you need to refresh.
There you go.
It just did.
It just popped up.
It was delayed. How about that? Marty just popped up. Go ahead, Marty. What's going on?
Well, I'm glad I got through, Paul, because I know how much you like Marcus Kuhn, and I wanted to tell you that my son-in-law and daughter, when they were leaving Germany a few years back, they actually flew back on a plane with Marcus Kuhn sitting right with them, and they talked the whole time about, the Giants, and he had just started his new ambassador job with the NFL, and they said he was a down-to-earth guy and real nice guy. They couldn't believe that, She said to him, she says, you look like, you're a football player. You look big like a football.
He sure does.
And he said, yeah. He says, I am. And he told them, he started talking to them and told them the story. And they said you wouldn't meet a nicer guy than him.
He's a very cool guy.
He's a very nice guy.
The job was perfectly, crafted for him because he can represent anybody extremely well.
Yeah, well, it was a thrill for them, I guess, how many people get to do that in their life, meet somebody,
Sure. What else you got, Marty?
That was it, Paul.
Oh, that's okay.
You might like to hear it because I know you're a Marcus Kuhn
Yeah,
fan, so.
and I believe he's hosting a whole bunch of events over there this week as well. So any Giants fans who may be in Germany who are tuned into the program on the internet, we invite you to look up on Giants.com because there are a slew of different events that are going on around Munich. I know there's the was it the Hofbrauhaus? Is it, Pearson? Yep. There's the name of the place that the Giants have kind of made their official headquarters.
I believe that's tonight, a big event there.
Is tonight? Well, that makes a lot of sense since the game is Sunday morning. If you had the game on Sunday morning and the event was late Saturday night, you might not have a lot of guys getting to the game. So I'm sure it probably is tonight. So that's good stuff. And I certainly I would not only second that, but the Giants also this year, Phil Simms has also been around a lot. Matt, you know this as well.
Yep.
He has done a lot since his time at CBS, and now he's doing a number of various projects. One of them has been to participate in a number of Giants activities, and I can tell you as well, as thrilled as I am to have Marcus Kuhn around, it is awesome to have Phil Simms around here again.
Yeah, no, it really is. Sorry, I got a little distracted because the injury report just came in.
What do you got?
What do we got? So Darius Slayton, obviously already ruled out, did not make the trip. Bryce Ford Whedon has also been ruled out. And then we have 4 players listed as questionable. Linebacker Matt Adams, linebacker Darius Muasau, safety Jason Pinnock, and Graham Gano, which that does mean Jamie Gillen is good to go for Sunday, which is good. Hopefully, obviously, Graham Gano is back. And, yeah, that's 3 players on defense, 2 of the linebackers, and especially on special teams, Muasau and Matt Adams are big contributors. Hopefully those guys are
so
good
is
to
Ford
go.
Wheaton.
So Ford Wheaton too, yeah. Pinnock did not practice today. All those other guys that were listed as questionable did get in a limited practice. So hopefully that means they are trending in the right direction. We're going to have to see. The last 2 days, Adams and Muasau were both limited. The fact that they were able to get out there in any capacity hopefully puts them on the right side of questionable, but we're going to have to wait and see.
Raheem Blackshear has had a pretty good year returning punts and kickoffs for the Panthers. If I'm the Giants and I know I'm down, 3 key special teams coverage contributors, I'm putting that ball through the end zone on every kickoff.
No Nick McLeod, too.
Well, McLeod was cut.
I know, but he's been
all right. So that's
on
4
special teams.
Yeah, I mean, but you knew he wasn't going to be here.
Yeah.
So I would put that ball through the end zone every time, and I would take that every punt, and I would probably kick that punt out of bounds every time too. I don't think I'd want to mess around.
Yeah, no, I'm with
I mean,
you.
you're short. You're short on kick coverage, and that's a big deal. Anyway, 201-939-4513. We've got about 15 minutes left in the program, folks. If you want to give us a call, we would be very glad to entertain your conversation. Tyrone Tracy, I want to talk about him for a second, Matt, because we have heard week by week, he's had 2 100-yard rushing games, and we have heard week by week as he continues to produce, coaches said he's earned more reps. And I'm glad to see that he has because, man, oh man, he does some really explosive things with the football. So the question becomes, as the Giants move forward, is it still a 1 and 1A with Singletary as 1A? Or does he really become the 2? Is there such a line of delineation where it's Tracy's job and Singletary is now simply a backup?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've already gotten there.
Seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks. Now, the first game that
Singletary was nicked up.
The first game that Devin Singletary came back from the injury, I believe that was the Eagles game. Does that sound right? Yeah, because he got hurt against the Cowboys.
Yes.
Missed the next 2 games.
Right.
And then returned for the Eagles game.
Barely played in that game.
Didn't play a lot.
Yeah.
But he was active.
So I don't know if that was because he was hurt or game plan.
Yes, my point being, let's throw that game out. Let's just look at the last 2 games. Against the Steelers, Tyrone Tracy had 20 carries to Devin Singletary's 2. Mm-hmm. Now, Singletary did, if you look at just snaps played, Singletary, I believe, or Tracy, I believe, was like 57, and Singletary was a 40-something. Yeah.
But let's not kind of split.
But let's not forget, Tyrone Tracy missed the whole final drive because that's when he suffered the concussion.
That is true.
So Singletary played every single one of those snaps on that last drive, which if he didn't suffer the concussion, you would think that would have been Tyrone Tracy. Last week against the Commanders, Tyrone Tracy had 16 carries. Singletary had 7. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the tides have already turned to where Tyrone Tracy is the starter and Devin Singletary is the, Tyrone needs a break. He needs a breather, change of pace. Let's put Devin Singletary in for a couple of snaps.
Now, if Tracy is the number 1 guy now, if he has totally displaced Singletary, I'm going to say to you this. I want to get him more touches in the passing game. I think if you look at his numbers game by game, I want to say he's had 5 catches in a game once.
I think it was the Bengals game, which it was the one game he's really been limited as a runner. He was a big contributor in the passing game in that game.
And is there another game he's caught more than 3 passes? I don't think so.
Let me check. I believe you are right, but let me just pull it up real quick. Yeah, the Bengals game he had 6.
Okay.
The Eagles game he had 3 for 9 yards.
3. And no other game.
No other game with 3.
Now, if he is your lead back, he's got to catch more than 3 passes in a game, especially with his ability to work in space.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. And I was just looking at the snap rate between Tracy and Singletary this past week, which again, both of them fully healthy because Tracy cleared from the protocol. Singletary, another week removed from that injury. Tyrone Tracy played 72% of the snaps. Singletary played the other 28%. And that was a 47 snaps to 18 snaps for Singletary. So to answer your original question, I think it is already done. I think Tracy is now the starting running back. Devin Singletary is the backup. I wouldn't even call it a 1A, 1B. It seems like Singletary or Tracy is the one, and
now
Singletary is the two.
Coach hasn't termed anybody anything.
Coach has not said that.
We're talking.
This is just what it seems like.
This is our conversation.
Yeah, this is just what it seems
I
like.
want to make that clear.
Yes, for sure. This is just what it seems like based on playing time. And I'm pretty sure Coach Dable had actually a quote today. Let me try to pull it up about Tyrone Tracy's playing time. Yeah, you take it for a second.
In the meantime, we should tell you, if you're trying to get Giants tickets for either the rest of the season or single games, just go to giants.com/tickets. There is an ability to still get half seasons if you like, and you get all kinds of memberships that go with that, things you can do in the off season. Also, Giants TV is the official connected streaming app. It is free, available on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Okay, what do you got?
Okay, so Coach was asked this morning or this afternoon, but morning in Munich about Tyrone Tracy. He had a lot to say about him, a lot of good things, and then the follow-up question was, will he continue to get the first team reps? And Coach Dable's response was, yeah, he'll get a lot of the reps for us. The other running backs will use all of them, but Tracy is going to be the primary guy for us.
That is the first time he has said something even close to being definitive.
Yep, that's why I remember seeing that on Twitter before.
And that just came out within the last hour, right?
Yes.
Or two?
12:35 we got that.
Okay, so my question is moot because we already have the answer. And it doesn't surprise me, nor does it surprise you.
No, the way he's been playing, he deserves to be the starting running back.
I think he's the third leading rusher among NFL rookies this year. Does that sound right to you?
He's number one.
Is he number one?
He is the
leading. Third in total yardage?
It might be, yeah. That sounds more. I know for a fact he is the number one leading rusher in terms of rookie running backs or rookie rushers, period. He also leads all rookies in runs of 10-plus yards and 20-plus yards.
That I did know.
Yeah. He's been explosive. Like, he's...
Fifth round, by the way.
All the playing time that Tyrone Tracy has gotten, especially this last month, he has earned. Without a doubt. And there's nothing against Devin Singletary because Devin Singletary was solid at the beginning of the season prior to that injury. But as we've come to see year after year, if a starter gets hurt and the backup gets a chance to fill in and he runs with that opportunity, sometimes the starter never gets a chance again.
Now, I want to be clear here, too, because we've tried to tell a lot of you folks over the years that you don't want to rush a young rookie running back into the lineup because pass pro is so critical, and you never want to see your quarterback get hit unnecessarily. Well, I think it bears mentioning that Tyrone Tracy, according to my film study, I've only charged him with allowing 1 sack this year.
Yeah,
That's it.
He's been very good in picking up blitzes, which
he's not afraid to hit guys.
That's for any rookie running back. That's probably the number one concern is how they are going to be in pass protection. And Tyrone Tracy has really stepped up, and he's done a very good job in that area. Has it been absolutely perfect? No. I would say it's been sort of what you'd expect a rookie running back to do. But as you said, there have not been many plays where Tyrone Tracy blew some sort of protection and Daniel Jones got sacked or was forced to throw the ball away. There haven't been that many situations like that.
I had him charged for 1 sack against Philadelphia. It was Nakobe Dean, and it was a 3rd down zone blitz, and he tried to cut block him. And Dean was able to jump over him and get to the quarterback. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good.
So a real salute to Tyrone Tracy, who now, because of what Coach Dable said just a couple of hours ago, is inserting himself into being the lead back in this Giants attack. And I'm just glad to see it because he's worked very hard. He came here very humble. And I love the fact that, too, he's only had 2 years of running back experience, which means there's more ups here. You know, he was a wide receiver before he finally was converted into a running back during his college career. So he still has stuff to learn. He's only going to get better. I'm excited for the guy.
I'm so excited. It was actually funny you bring that up. After the Steelers game, and this was technically when he was in the concussion protocol, some account on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, put out like a video hyping Tracy's performance up against the Steelers because Tyrone Tracy was great against the Steelers, and that is one of the top run defenses in the NFL, and he just gashed them for 145 yards on the ground. And Tyrone Tracy like quote tweeted this highlight video and was like, and think, this is only my second full-time year playing this position. So I like
love it.
So I feel like one of the reasons he dropped to the 5th round was because A, as he said, he had only been a running back for 1 year in college, and B, he's certainly on the older side for any sort of rookie. He's 24 years old. He played 6 years of college football, so he's certainly on the older side. But this guy, his game is still ascending. He can become, I mean, he already is a good running back. He can become a great running back in the NFL with a little more growth and development.
He reminds me a little bit, and I don't want to tag this on him to get him, blown out of proportion in any way. But in terms of the fact that he's got some size to him, he's got some thickness to him, he's got some quicks, he's got slashing ability, he plays fast. He reminds me of a young Rodney Hampton. He really does. Now, Rodney then became a power back later in his career as he got older, and of course his knee was breaking down on him, and he gained weight and he put on muscle and bulk, and he became more of a grinder his last couple of years. But early in his career, when Otis Anderson was here, and Rodney was a rookie, remember the 1990 season when they won the Super Bowl, and Rodney was a rookie and he gained over 500 yards that year as a rookie, and it was him and Otis Anderson who led the Giants to that NFC Championship and then the ultimate Lombardi Trophy. Rodney was the big play back, the slasher, the guy who was going to catch the ball and get some yak yardage out of it, which I think we'd like to see Tracy do more of. We've already alluded to that. But that's the style and the kind of guy that Tracy, I think, could be once he gets full-fledged into this. And you know what? The way it's going, within the next month, he may truly have another 1 or 2 100-yard games. He may have a couple more before the season's out.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Not at all.
I wouldn't say I expect it because you can't expect that from any running back in the NFL. But just looking at the schedule, obviously this week the Panthers either the worst or one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. And if you look at the schedule after the bye week, there's some, at least on paper, some very good matchups for the Giants' run game. So, yeah, I definitely would not be surprised if he can crack the 100-yard mark more than once rest of the season. And I think total yards from scrimmage, he will break that 100-yard number multiple times because I do think as,
total yards, yes. He should break it almost every week.
I think he's going to get a little more play in the passing game as we get a little further along in the season, especially out of the bye week. I think the Giants are going to, my personal opinion, I think they're going to try put an emphasis on getting him more involved in the passing game.
Well, the more reps he gets at this level, the quicker he will learn and the faster he will mature and become more and more a part of this Giants offense as the lead back going forward into 25. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and let's not forget, former wide receiver. Guy knows how to catch a football.
All right, finally, before we send it out of here, I don't think we have any other calls on the line, so we do not. We're going to touch on the Panthers. One thing about this matchup that really intrigues me, Matt, and maybe you feel the same way, but it's one particular matchup that I'm excited for, and that's going to be J.C. Horn against Malik Neighbors. J.C. Horn is a former first-round pick. Let's see, he was drafted in 21, so he's been around just a few years. But this season, he has done a ridiculous job with his length of blanketing opposing teams' number 1 receivers. In particular, he's given up about a 44% completion mark on passes targeted his way. This guy is going to be a really big test and challenge for Neighbors. Neighbors is going to learn a lot by playing against this guy, and it ought to be interesting to see how many times he can win a matchup against Horn and try to move this Giants offense downfield. This is going to be a really, really big step, I think, in the maturing process of the Giants' young rookie receiver, because Horn is one of the better and albeit underrated cover corners in this league.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love J.C. Horn as a player. I think he's a very good, solid corner that if he were on maybe another team that were a little bit better, he would get a lot more attention from, the national media. And he's coming off probably his best game of the season. I mean, granted, they were playing the Saints, who did not have any healthy wide receivers last week, but J.C. Horn and his fellow starting cornerback for the Panthers, Mike Jackson, they combined to allow 0 receptions in coverage as the nearest defender, according to Next Gen Stats. So this will definitely be a good, tough matchup for Malik Neighbors, but it is one that I think he can win. And I think he can take advantage of this Panthers defense, and I think this could be a big game for Malik Neighbors. He's due for one, because he hasn't really had a breakout performance since he came back from the concussion a couple of weeks ago. For me, and I know we were just talking about this guy, but I think, and it's hard to classify this as a breakout because he's already sort of broken out, but I think this is going to be just a huge monster game for Tyrone Tracy. I think this matches up on paper to be just great for him. The Panthers, as I mentioned before, allow the most yards per rushing attempt in the NFL. They rank dead last in that area. No, sorry, that is the Giants.
I was
the
just
Panthers
say,
rank dead last in total rushing yards. Let me start that over.
The Panthers are very low,
yes,
but they're not quite at the bottom.
No, they are. I got it mixed up.
Okay.
Tyrone Tracy's set up for a good matchup on paper because the Panthers allowed the most total rushing yards in the NFL. They've given up over 1,400 yards through the first 9 games of the season. Tyrone Tracy has been, as we were just talking about, implemented more and more in this offense. He's averaging 5 yards per carry, I think, and the Giants are favored for the first time all season in this game, which if you go by that should mean or could mean.
But we don't go by those things,
some
folks.
Positive. Hopefully that means some positive.
We don't go by that. We don't talk about favorites and underdogs.
Hopefully that means some positive game script for the Giants, though, that their offense is on the field more than their defense is. And the other area, which again I feel like I talk about this every week, but I think this is a good week for the Giants to get back on track in terms of their red zone offense. Obviously, they have struggled in the red zone to start the season. There's no doubt about it. But the Panthers are not great at limiting opponents from getting into the end zone. They've given up a touchdown on 27 of 39 red zone trips for opponents inside the 20-yard line. That ranks 27th in the NFL. So I think if the Giants can limit some of the mistakes we've seen in previous weeks, continue to establish the run with Tyrone Tracy, I think they will get into the red zone a good amount, and I think they will punch it into the end zone more often than not on Sunday.
To your point on rushing yards per carry, Panthers are 20th in the NFL, 4.6. So
yes.
They are down in the bottom third.
I got it mixed up with total rushing
I want to make sure
yards.
we give that too. They are in the bottom third of that statistic as well.
Yes.
So
and they've
had a rough time.
And the one stat I forgot to mention in terms of Tyrone Tracy and the red zone is that the Carolina Panthers have allowed 15 rushing touchdowns so far this season, which that I know for a fact is dead last in the NFL. It is the most touchdowns any team has allowed on the ground. This sets up great on paper for Tyrone Tracy. As Coach mentioned earlier today, he's the primary guy now. I think this could be a very big game for the rookie 5th-round pick.
Daniel Jones is getting a rushing touchdown Sunday.
I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised.
Little play fake, naked boot.
Did you see that he won the Good Morning Football Angry Runs this week?
Did.
For that touchdown run?
I did.
I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it 2 games in a row.
All right, folks. That'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. Once again, as a reminder, 7:30 a.m. on Sunday morning, breakfast with Big Blue. Because the Giants have a 2-hour radio pregame show right here on WFAN in New York, 7:30 to 9:30. Then the kickoff. Game is over. Then you get 1 hour on MSG, live postgame show from Munich. And then we'll also be here 2 hours following the game's conclusion on WFAN with the Giants Extra Point. And again, enjoy hopefully things will work out well, and the Giants will break their 4-game skid. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. That'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. It is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants, and we'll see you next time.